أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم طريقة الصحبة والخير في الجمعية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So we're going to be looking into a book by Shaykh Jamaluddin al-Humuqi al-Husseini, who is also the Imam of Imam Shamil, the famous Naqshbandi Dagestani Mujahid, also known because he's from the village of Khabib, the famous UFC fighter. But Imam Shamil was a great mujahid, but his sheikh actually was Shaykh Jamaluddin al-Humuqi al-Husseini, who was a great scholar of the deen, a hafiz, was a scholar of aqidah. He memorized the 6 books of hadith. He was an amazing scholar, rahimahullah. And he wrote a book about cultivating the heart, and it's called Al-Adab al-Mardiyya, the attributes that if the Muslim has these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with him. The pleasing attributes, one might call it. So I want to be looking at a few things he says about the diseases of the heart. And his main point is that the diseases of the heart are necessary to know. And this is what we're going to be focusing on. So he says, قال المؤلف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلوم في الدارين آمين. He says, اعلم أن الإنسان لا يتقرب إلى حضرات العلية ولا يشاهد الأسرار الربوبية إلا بتزكية نفسه عن الصفات الحيوانية وتخلقه بالأخلاق الصمدانية. He says, you should know that a human being cannot come closer to the divine presence, and he won't see any of the spiritual secrets or the secrets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except by cleaning his ego and his soul from any animalistic attributes. الصفات الحيوانية وتخلقه بالأخلاق الصمدانية, and to acquire those attributes of the soul which are of a much higher nature, more higher heavenly nature of the soul. فلذلك قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تخلقوا بأخلاق الله تعالى. Take on the attributes, the heavenly attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which obviously, first of all, is not a literal statement that we cannot take the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as the scholars of Aqidah say, we take the word. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has rahmah. We have rahmah also. That doesn't mean that Allah is like us, that He has a feeling, and that feeling is a type of shafaqa or like pity, and then He gives something. No. What it means is what the ulama of Aqidah and Balagha say. It means, when we say rahmah, it means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He will do things, He will do af'al. The end result of these is for us mercy. That's what it means to us. So he says, so acquire those good attributes. ولا يمكن لكل أحد أن يتزكى نفسه عن تلك الصفات الحيوانية إلا بأن يسلك في الطريق الصوفية. He says the only way to get rid of those animalistic attributes is to traverse the path of those who purify themselves, the path of the Sufis. Again, here, what he means, الطريق الصوفية, this is like, they call this the normative path. So the path as it is described, as it should be, as it is mentioned in the book, and how it is intended by the Prophet ﷺ. Not when we look outside, which is descriptive, how Sufi groups and Sufis act. No, that's not what he means, because he's going to describe also what is then the Sufi path. التي هي طريق تهذيب الأخلاق. He gives a definition. So then what is it? He says this path is actually to تهذيب الأخلاق, to purify and to beautify your character. This is what this path is about. بأن يعرف الأخلاق الذميمة, by knowing what is bad character. وعلاج زوالها, and to know وعلاج زوالها, to know. So he says بأن يعرف الأخلاق الذميمة وعلاج زوالها. So he should know what is bad character. That's one. وعلاج زوالها, and also he should know how to get rid of them. ويعرف الأخلاق الحميدة وطريقة اتصالها, and also to know what is good character and how to acquire it. And this is exactly what the scholars say, that whoever wants to purify his soul, his ego, his nafs, he should know from bad characteristics. What is the definition? And this is exactly what the Imam says also. What is the definition of the bad characteristics? For example, when we say anger, what do we mean with anger? Because anger also has a good side. If you use anger to protect yourself against something that will harm you, that is a good thing. So to know the definition of bad characteristics. So kibr, which is arrogance. What is the definition of arrogance? He said you should know these. وَعَلَاجِ زَوَالِهَا, and also you should know how to get rid of those, how to get rid of these characteristics. And Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, he adds a third, and what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of vanity? What are the symptoms of riya, to do things for others and not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are the symptoms of arrogance? These you should know. And then he says you should also know what are the good characteristics and what are the descriptions, what is the definition, and how can you acquire those. So, and this is very important because we want to have the good characteristics as they are described and as they are presented to us by the Quran and the Sunnah. And then it's not based on what we think that good character is, or what we think that society thinks good character is, although there is an overlap, obviously. But we want to have good character based on the Quran and the Sunnah, because if we don't have this, it's also going to be a trick of the ego. He's going to tell us, no, this is actually good character. And this is how you actually dupe yourself into thinking of good character. But no, we have a way to see if this is actual good character, which is the Quran and the Sunnah. So, and then the Imam goes into a list of bad characteristics, and he will go into good characteristics. To sum up, Imam al-Ghazali, he quotes a hadith, and he says that the three main diseases of the heart that every Muslim should know, which is fard ayn. This is an individual obligation on any Muslim, just as it is an individual obligation to know how to make wudu, to do prayer, as it is to make ghusl, to shower before you make prayer, as it is to fast in Ramadan, as it is to give zakat when you have the money, as it is to pray. This is an individual obligation to know three diseases of the heart. Which are those? First is hasad, which is jealousy. The second is riya. Riya is to do things for others than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Pretentiousness. And the third is al-ujub, to be impressed with yourself, to be impressed with yourself, and that can show itself through arrogance. So that will be an extension of it. So these three sicknesses, we need to know the definition of these. We need to know what are the symptoms, so to know, to diagnose ourselves, do I have these sicknesses? And the third, how to get rid of these. But then again, because our scholars, rahimahullah, because they have this shafaqah for the ummah, they have this care for the ummah, this hirs, this intense yearning that the ummah is guided. They even went further. They said, okay, if all these diseases of the heart goes back to these three, what does these three evolve around? So what is the main disease? And some of the scholars, they spoke about this. For example, the great Moroccan scholar and saint Ibn Ashir, he spoke about the main disease of the heart. And he says, وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ أَصْلَ كُلَّ ذِي الْآفَاتِ وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ أَصْلَ ذِي الْآفَاتِ حُبُّ الرِّيَاسَةِ وَالطَّرْحُ الْآتِ. He says, you should know that the head, the root of all of these diseases of the heart is love of leadership and postponing or being careless, neglectful of the akhirah, of the coming life. He said this is the main disease of the heart. But a lot of people don't know there's actually some discussion about what is actually the main disease of the heart. And for that I want to read what Imam al-Mawlud said in his Matharatul Qulub, also known in the English world as the purification of the heart. He goes into this, and this is not part of the English translation of the book, because there is an English translation available with a commentary. But this is not mentioned in there because it's a longer poem and only a part of it is translated into the English language. Imam al-Mawlud says, وَأَصْلُهَا الْجَامِعُ حُبُّ الْحَاضِرِ فِي مَا حَكَى الْهِلَالُ وَابْنُ عَاشِرٍ. He says the أَصْلُهَا الْجَامِعُ, so the main root of all of it, the complete root, the root of all of these sicknesses is حُبُّ الْحَاضِرِ, love of this life, which also means to neglect and to be completely careless about the next life. As Hilal says, and Ibn Ashir, which we just mentioned. وقال إن أصل كل داء رضا الفتى عن نفس العطاء. But there is also opinion by Imam Ibn Ata'illah al-Sakandari, who says actually the root cause is actually to be satisfied with your ego. And then he goes to the explanation. وأصل كل خصلة تستحسن عدمه والوجه فيه بين. He says because the problem, and he's going to explain it, is when you look at everything of your ego with a pleasing eye, there is no need to improve. لأنه داع إلى بحثك عن أخلاقها فتتقي غير الحسن. Because if you're going to find fault in your ego, there will be a باحث. البحث is going to be it will push you. It will push you to improve yourself. But as long as you don't see any negativity in yourself or any bad characteristic of the ego, you will never try to improve. And that's why it's so important, of the utmost important, to know these definitions of the diseases of the heart. وأصل الأصلين خلال أهل كل فدين المرء دين الخل. And then he says all of these eventually will go back to أصل الأصلين, the fundamental, all these fundamentals, the root of all roots is, who do you keep company with? فدين المرء دين الخل, because this is the hadith, you are on the religion of your brother. المرء على دين خليله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said this, that a person is on the religion of his beloved friend. And this is obviously because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, speaking to the Sahaba, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Be with the Sadiqeen, those with utmost sincerity and those who give their best to support the truth. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking to the Sahaba about this. And there is some opinion that some say this is about Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. The Sahaba should take an example of him, or Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, which means the senior Sahaba. So all of the diseases of the heart go back to knowing the diseases, knowing their definition, their symptoms, and how to get rid of those, and to have good company. So anyone who claims to be in the spiritual path, to claim to be a Sufi, and he does not know these things, I mean, he is more into the culture of Tasawwuf and Sufism, which is also good, inshallah, because you are directly or indirectly in the company of some pious people, but there will be a lack. And since this is a fard ayn, an individual obligation, to know these diseases of the heart, we should strive to know them and to apply them. And we will go into some of these, inshallah.